Sucker!
Alrighty, welcome once again to the voiceofwrestling.com and the Virtual Sports Network Pro Wrestling Podcast. I'm Rich Kraetsch alongside, as always, Mr. Joe Lanza. And Joe, we have a very special guest today.
We do. We have Booker T with us. The book is Booker T, From Prison to Promise, Life Before the Squared Circle. Booker T and the co-author is Andrew William Wright. The book is set to hit stores on September 1st. And Booker T is with us today to talk about it. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing really good, man. I'm like on top of the world right now.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for joining us. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
And first thing I think is interesting about this book is it's not your typical wrestling book. This book focuses on your life before wrestling.
Yeah, because I'm not the typical wrestler, actually. Most wrestlers grow up wishing to be wrestlers since they were kids, the Jeff Hardys, the Edges, the Christians, those guys, grew up, wanting to be professional wrestlers. And as soon as they got out of school, they went right into it. They dove right into it, and they've been, a part of that scene, pretty much their whole lives. Myself, wrestling was, not even an afterthought. I was just trying to make it through everyday life. So I just think that's what, compelled me to put the story out there. More than anything, just to let, that kid that perhaps maybe in my shoes, read the story and say, man, if Booker T can make it, I can make it too.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the most compelling parts I thought of the book was kind of your sort of early childhood and growing up. Can you maybe describe what it sort of was like, your early childhood and all the situations and the different, kind of tragedies that happened early in your life?
It's kind of hard to describe, to be honest. You have to actually walk in the shoes to actually understand it. I mean, reading the story will give you a little bit of what it was like. It was tough, I guess. But the way I always looked at life is you never really miss what you never had. You know what I mean? And like I say, I'm just trying to make it through life. After my mother passed, of course. Before that, everything was fine. Because she pretty much afforded us to have a pretty decent life. But after my mother passed, everything just seemed to implode, with all of the family members, and we just was, in disarray, not knowing, where to turn, so from that point, things were pretty rocky.
So you were the youngest of 8 children, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and your father passed away before your first birthday, and your mother passed away when you were a young teenager. Tragically, actually, your mother passed away. Do you want to give the listeners an idea of what happened with that?
It was, back then, it wasn't as, lawsuits wasn't as prevalent, as they was, as they are these days, But it was a malpractice suit. My mother went in to have back surgery. She was perfectly fine, totally, with this, in sound mind, before she went to the hospital. And, she took the anesthesia and my heart stopped. And that was the last time I got a chance to talk to my mother or see my mother alive, that day, 1979, quite some time ago.
That's terrible. And at that point, you mentioned that things just sort of went in disarray for you and all your siblings. Who took over guardianship of you guys at that point?
Well, at that point, I'm kind of just out there. My sister and I, we pretty much just taking care of ourselves. One of my sisters ended up stepping in and taking the role of, trying to take care of us. But, she was going through her own, struggles as well. You know what I mean? I don't think she was ready to be a parent, at that time. But she did take us in and tried to, give us proper life. But it was just hard at that time because, like I say, everybody, all of my sisters, all of my brothers, we were all pretty much lost at that time, and we were just trying to, just trying to make it through it, in our own ways, and it pretty much separated us, in so many different ways.
Yeah, really, and one of the next stages kind of your life, and I know the book sort of describes this a decent amount, was the birth of your son Brandon, and that whole situation of your high school girlfriend, and then the issue with her on drugs, and it was hard for you to see him, and can you kind of describe what that sort of was like, and that sort of entire time in your life where it kind of took another step?
Well, actually at that point in my life, actually, when my son was first born, I was in denial. It was something that I really didn't want to accept. And then on the other hand, she was, the girlfriend that didn't want me to be around the son if I wasn't with her, so it was a problem, from both sides, but me, at that point in time, ducking my responsibilities, not wanting to step up as being a man, and take care of my son, was, it was a trying time for me, but I thought, I was a young kid. I really didn't know what I was doing, and didn't really realize it, until after, going to prison and coming home, and my son being in foster care, left in a, foster home, actually, by his mother, actually, because she was on drugs, and it was a decision, once I got the letter, find out my son is locked away somewhat like I was locked away. I had to ask myself the question, what kind of man I was. I mean, could I look at myself in the mirror? My mother could raise eight kids. How can I not, step up to the plate and raise one? So all those memories start flooding back into my head, as far as, what my mother had instilled in me, knowing right from wrong, please, yes, thank you, yes, ma'am. So all those things just flooded back into my head, and there was no way that I couldn't step up and try to do the right thing.
So prison was really a time of reflection for you, and it really sunk in you at that point that wow, I really need to do something with my life when I get out of here. And there were some things that your mother had taught you that you reflected on while you were in prison. And after you got out of prison, you actually, if I understand correctly, you gained full custody of your child.
Yep. I went through a year, with the courts, proving, myself that I was worthy, to be a dad, to be his father, it was like I said, a time for me where, it was a make or break time for me as a man. I could have, continued to, act like a boy and want to go out in the clubs and hang out with my friends and, do all the, stuff that really don't mean anything, or, step up and, take my son, bring him into my home, raise him, put him through school, be able to look at myself in the mirror first and foremost, but it was a time that I reflected, and looked at myself, but before I even went to prison, it was the first time that I ever got in trouble with when I actually got in all of the trouble. I'd never been in jail or anything before that. I'd never been in the back of a police car before that day, but I always knew jail was not the place for me. I always knew that wasn't going to be my life, being a guy who was going back and forth to jail. I knew it was something bigger for me in this life.
Well, let's back up a little bit. You said you had never been to jail and you weren't in trouble, but why don't you tell the listeners who may not know what actually ended up landing you in prison?
Aggravated robbery. Actually, Wendy's Hamburgers, actually a place here in Houston, and they got them all over the world, of course. But I worked there for a while. It did got disgruntled, got off in other activities, and then the thought came up to rob the place. It wasn't even a thought. It was just something that we were playing around with. And I always tell kids, peer pressure is something that's really, really huge. You gotta know how to avoid it. It's like a whirlwind. Once it starts turning, it's like a hurricane. A twister. You can't get out of it until it stops. And we were caught up. And then one robbery turned into two turned into five turned into 10.
Oh, wow.
And then the cops came out and the rest is history. But it was a foolish decision, thinking that we could get away with something like that, thinking that we were smarter than the police at that time, not really knowing what could happen to you when you do get, caught up in the system, not knowing how much time you can get for a crime like that, not watching the news was something I never did back then. And so I just didn't know what I was getting myself into until it was too late.
Yeah, and I think one of the more interesting parts that of when you actually got to prison, and you took it in a different, where some people get, depressed or whatever. You almost seem to get motivated. I know that you talked about, you got your GED, you were the model prisoner, you joined the weightlifting team. Can you kind of describe that time in prison and how you sort of meant it's really kind of inspiring in that sense that you really kind of embraced it and really kind of went to you didn't get depressed about it. You really kind of made the most of it.
Well, it just goes back to what my mother had, said. I knew right from wrong. I knew what I did was wrong. I knew what I was a part of was wrong. There was no way that I could, not accept that. You know what I mean? So what I did was I got in there, motivated myself. I got to school, got on the weightlifting team. I started, just trying to motivate myself towards what I was going to do when I got out. I knew working out would take me somewhere, being in shape. I always had a different kind of look, so I just motivated myself up towards that. My brother actually was one of the guys who worked out all the time, so I always wanted to be like my brother, so being in prison, it wasn't that much different than being on the outside. Getting your respect is no different on the inside than it is on the outside. Sometimes you can, go around trouble. You can go under it. You can go over it. But sometimes you just got to go straight through it. And a lot of people respect that. So when I was in prison, the guards respected me. I respected them. The warden respected me. I respected him. And my peers, the inmates, they respected me. But I respected them as well. And it is no different in prison than it is on the outside. Only thing, you're behind bars. That's why so many people get institutionalized, and it's so easy for them to go right back to prison because they know
Right.
everything is going to be taken care of for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I get the sense that it's not that you and your siblings weren't raised right. You just raised yourselves due to two terrible tragedies: your father passing away at a stroke, your mother due to complications from the surgery. How did your siblings turn out? We all know about Stevie Ray and what happened with him, but what about some of your other siblings?
My sister that took me in, that ended up kicking me out, she's, I credit her. She's got a big thanks in the book, you know what I mean? Because if it wasn't for her, treating me the way she did and teaching me the street and teaching me how to be a man at the same time, I wouldn't be where I am. My brother Dunn, he's doing very well. My brother Danny, he's had ups and downs in his life, but the thing is, we're all still here. None of my brothers, sisters have passed away or anything. We're all still here. My mother passed in 1979, and we're still here, and we're still struggling to try to, make my mother proud, and that's try to become family. You know what I mean? Trying to become one, and I think that happens as you get older. You know what I mean? As you mature and know that life is one day at a time.
So you get out of prison, you get yourself a job, you start turning yourself around, you get custody of your son, you get more into the weightlifting. Tell us how the weightlifting transitioned into getting into pro wrestling.
Well, when I got out of prison, I moved back in with my sister, and I got paroled to her house, and she wasn't, the model citizen. I could have easily ended up getting right back in trouble. I almost was going right back down that road, and like, man, I got to get out of this situation. So my brother took me in, and he only asked me, one thing. He only said, I asked him, could he help me get me a job? And he said, yeah, but no matter what the job is, I don't care if it's sweeping floors, washing dishes, digging ditches, whatever it is. He said, do it to the best of your ability to something else better come along. He said, if you could do that for me, I'll help you get a job. And,
which brother was that?
My brother, Stevie Ray.
Okay.
He helped me get a job, and I started training, on a regular basis, you know what I mean, in and out of the gym, every chance I get. I knew it would lead me to something. I didn't know if I thought I was going to be a stripper, I thought I was going to be a bodyguard. I thought I was going to be, I even tried bodybuilding. But I knew I was going to be something. I knew it was going to lead me to something positive and something good if I just stayed focused with it. And then working at the place that I was working at, the people liked me, and when the wrestling opportunity came, which was due to my brother, I'm knowing a guy who was going to be opening a wrestling school. He asked me if I wanted to try it. Didn't have the money to do it. It was $3,000. And the guy who I worked for sponsored me to go to the wrestling school, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's probably my favorite aspect of the entire story is that your boss was willing to say, here's $3,000 and go do this, go do something better. I mean, that's to me is amazing. And do you still have any sort of relationship with him, or is there any sort of talk? Because I mean, that really, I mean, if you think about it at that level of he didn't have to do that, and out of the
Now,
kindness of his heart, he did that, and
you know,
that's
he didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? But that's why I always never judge people. You never look at a person, and think because of their color. He was a Jewish guy. Because of their background, who they are. You can't judge people like that. And I never have judged people like that. This guy actually, when I first started working for this guy, his name is Bruce Gasarch, and he owned a bunch of apartment complexes. And my brother actually, my first job when I got out of prison was a security guard. And my brother told me to lie on the application to get the job. You know what I mean? So I ended up getting the job. And 6 months later, so after the background check came back, they realized I had a record and they had to let me go. And but the people that I had been working for had saw my character over those 6 months, and they gave me another chance to put me just in another department. And that led to another department. They saw how good of a worker I was. And that's the thing, coming out of prison, I knew I had to prove myself to people all over again. I had to go into that respect all over again, and I went out of my way to let people know that just because I had an ex, it didn't mean that I wasn't, an okay guy. And as far as I'm staying in contact with them. I have had contact over the years, but it's not like we can't stay in contact, all the time.
Right. So it was you and your brother, Stevie Ray, who ended up going to, and I guess it was Ivan Putski's school in Houston?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was all my brothers out there, 1990, like I say, a couple of years out of prison, not knowing exactly where my life was going to go. Wrestling was an opportunity. When I got in the wrestling ring, I always tell people it was like, it was like deja vu. It was like a place that I had been, my whole life, but had never been. It seemed like it came so naturally to me. I knew when I got in the wrestling ring that was going to be my way out.
So you were a fan as a child. You just didn't have it earmarked as a future career or anything like that. But you did follow wrestling as a kid.
I followed wrestling. I was a huge wrestling fan as a kid. Especially here in Houston wrestling. A guy by the name of Paul Bosch.
Sure, absolutely.
Ran wrestling here, and I was a great admirer of Paul Bosch. I actually wear Paul Bosch's ring, the big ring that I wear, television. That was actually Paul Bosch's ring.
Really?
And and I always loved the entertainment. I always knew who were the best wrestlers, and who the guys that got paid the most money.
Right.
I mean, I knew Junkyard Dog made a lot of money because he had his own cartoon. I wanted to be like Junkyard Dog. You know what I mean? So, getting into it, it was a blessing. I don't know where I would be, without the square circle, without, wrestling being introduced to me, and, getting out there and making it work for me was another thing. It was a lot of hard work, but it seemed so easy compared to my life before.
Yeah, and can you kind of describe maybe the first couple of years of your wrestling, and then also kind of the development of your first character, which people might not know that they know, but they might know of that sort of the development of the GI Bro character and that sort of level of those first few years of getting in the business and kind of developing yourself, a character.
I'll tell you, those were like really, really great times. They let me know that I could make it when I was, became GI Bro. I always loved GI Joe, and it was crazy. I was working at this warehouse, and I found a Army hat in one of the storage units after I was cleaning it out. I kept it, wore it at the wrestling school that one night, and Scott Casey, my mentor, my trainer, guy who taught me, the business, he goes, "Now you go be GI Bro." And I was like, "Wow, GI Bro." I was like, "All right, I'll be GI Bro." I could go with that. And
see, it's funny because a lot of people think that was a WCW thing that they pushed on you.
Yeah.
But that's a gimmick that you came up with years earlier. That was your idea.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people thought I was, selling out
right
back in WCW. Like, what is he doing? But I was paying homage to Scott Casey, the guy who, taught me so much, in the business. And, when I was GI Bro, I tell you, I used to go wrestle at these high schools, and the fans would have a banner from one end to the other end, G.I. Joe, America's Greatest Hero. I would come out of the back, the kids would literally empty the bleachers and run down, and they would just hug me and grab me, and I was like, wow, I didn't understand it, you know what I mean? But I knew it, I had found something, and I liked it so much, so I just threw myself into, becoming better. And knowing exactly what it was going to take to get there, I knew I wanted to be different than, my peers that came before me. I knew I wanted to set an example, for, the young African American, wrestlers that was going to come behind me, as far as laying out the blueprint of what it takes to make it in this business. And I hope I've done that. And it's been a hell of a ride.
Yeah, and then I guess at that point you get discovered. I guess your first semi-big break was when Skandar Akbar saw you guys, you and your brother, and hooked you up with Global, which was, a lot of people don't realize, but I guess I'm showing my age a little bit. That was on TV every afternoon on ESPN, national television.
That was great. Monday through Friday. I think it was with Global. I was working a 6-day-a-week job when I was in Global, and it was such a great thing because I got a chance to a guy by the name of James Beard. He's a referee back in the day in Global, and he got me a trip to go to the Virgin Islands. And I went to the Virgin Islands, and I was like a big star over there. I was like, wow, you got to be kidding me. Everybody knew who I was. And then I went to Japan, and then I went to Korea. And I was like a big star, but I had to go right back to my job when I got back to the States. And I was like, wait a minute. Something's not right here, you know what I mean? But meeting Skandar Akbar was a great day. He said, one day I was in Amarillo, Texas. Took me and my brother about 20 hours to get there because it was a sheet of ice on the road going up that way. But we made it. We met Skandar. He said, man, I hope you guys will come and work for me one day, in Dallas. And, man, we went and worked for him in Dallas. Man, it was the greatest time working under, guys like Mike Davis, Johnny Mantell, those guys literally molded me and taught me, Black Bart. Those guys those guys were literally, teachers of the game, scholars of the game. I learned so much, being there for that 18 months, and then finally getting a call from Sid Vicious at WCW saying, hey man, how would you guys like to, make the switch, and come to WCW? And I was like, wow, you guys want to pay us to do this? We've been doing this almost for free, But it was great. It was great to work through the trenches like that, not even knowing that when that moment was going to come, if that moment was going to come, but just striving, hoping that that it would come. For so many guys, that call never come, and we were so blessed to be a tag team, and that's what they was looking for at that time.
Yeah, and Global, that was really the first national exposure for guys like you and your brother and Sean Waltman and Jerry Lynn and a few others. Do you think that's what directly led to Sid Vicious? Did he turn on ESPN one day and see you guys, or how did that come about?
Yeah, he had been watching us actually on Global. He had been watching us on, throughout our whole time, our whole stint there. And what it was, at that point in time, Sid was trying to get in the office. He was trying to, become like a, producer, agent, something like that. He wanted us to be his first project. And we turned out to be his first project. Sid brought us to Atlanta, Georgia. He put us up in his apartment. We stayed with Sid for about 3 or 4 months. Sid would make sure we got a raise every other month. I really appreciate Sid Vicious for everything that he did for, my brother and I. A lot of people don't know, how much charity work he did, getting us, in this business, getting us kicked off, and giving us that springboard. Our first pay-per-view in WCW was a War Games, and we were in the main event, with Sid Vicious and Big Van Vader going against Sting, Lex Luger, Ric Flair. It was unbelievable, to be among those guys. Like, how the hell did we get here? But it was great to have a person like Sid in our corner back then.
I do have to ask this though, because this was something that somebody wanted to ask us. You were kind of involved in this in the beginning, the Shockmaster. You were in that little atmosphere. What was that like, and what was going on with that entire thing? Because that's one of the funniest. I know it's kind of a YouTube sensation of people kind of watching that and laughing. And you guys, to your credit, you guys are stone faced the entire time and not trying to. Sid, not so much. He's kind of laughing a little bit.
The thing was, I was so green at that time when it happened. I was as shocked as the Shockmaster.
You were probably afraid to laugh.
Yeah, I was afraid to just do anything at that point in time. I just was trying to keep a job. I was glad I was among the the top guys in the company. Like I say, we don't know how we ended up there. Like right off the bat. And then when the angle went down the way it did. I mean that was typical WCW back in the day. Though we didn't rehearse a whole lot. We just went out there and just did it on the fly. A lot of times it was good. Sometimes it wasn't. That was one of the times that it wasn't so good. Almost, set that guy's career. I mean, it did set his career back, and set it into a tailspin.
Yeah, that was about the end.
That one thing right there, So man, I don't know what to say about it, but it was an exciting moment.
Well, it didn't set your career back because you spent the next 10 years pretty much in WCW until they were no longer in business. And by the time, on that final Nitro, you actually, you closed the company as the world champion. And then you were one of the contracts that they ended up picking up and bringing into the WWE. And what was I got to ask you, the first time you met Vince McMahon, what was that like?
It's crazy. Vince and I, we've always had a business relationship. We've always had a certain kind of a friendship after, we got a chance to know each other, and after I worked for him, for many years. You could respect me. I really think so. He's always been a straight up guy with me. Vince, you've heard a lot of stories about it. But Vince is literally one of the biggest family guys I know. He's all about business. I've learned so much from him. He's mentored me in so many different ways. And the first time I met him, of course, Vince McMahon is intimidating. But for me, I've never really been intimidated by a man, that's walking around on 2 feet. They got to put his hands up and fight if need be.
Yeah.
So with me, I think men can sense that with another man as well. And so the relationship I've had with Vince over these last 12 years, leaving the company and coming back now, we've always had a mutual respect for each other, and I think that's something that we'll always have for each other.
Because you were, like I said, the world champion at the time when they bought WCW, and you were the biggest star that they brought in. And they put you in the ring with Buff Bagwell on that fateful night in Tacoma, Washington. When you guys were in the ring wrestling that night, did you realize that thing was dying on the vine?
Yeah, I knew it was dying. Actually, it was the weekend before, because I had to wrestle Marcus that weekend, and the thing was, he just wasn't prepared, for that switch more than anything. At that time, he was dealing with his demons, and I had to work with him, like I said, that weekend, and I knew he just wasn't prepared for that Monday.
Right.
Of course, going out there that Monday night, him and I were going to have to go out into the ring. There was nothing no one could do about it. That night was WCW versus WWE. That's what that was all about.
Yep.
I mean, who's got the best wrestlers? Booker T is their top wrestler. Let's throw Bagwell in there with him. He's been a top guy. Let's see how they match up. It was a rough night for me. The first night I'd ever had in my wrestling career where the fans said boring. I'd never gotten that before. I didn't even know what that felt like until that night. So it was a night that'll live in infamy with me. It's a night that I remember for the rest of my life. But somehow I fought through it. You know what I mean?
Well, I think your opinion of it's on point because we never saw him again in the WWE. But you stuck around and look where you are. So I think you nailed it on the head. Maybe he just wasn't ready and you were.
Well, the thing was, a lot of those guys wasn't prepared to make that switch. And at that time, a lot of guys had big contracts, even myself. I took a buyout on my contract just to go to work. Everybody else sit at home, and collected their money and then, made the switch over. But for myself,
I thought that was brilliant at the time because all those other guys did choose to just sit home and get paid. You took the buyout, took a job, and you were the top guy who ended up coming over. So it all worked out for you.
I'm still here. I'm still here.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And the thing was, at that time, I was prepared to make that switch. I was looking forward to leaving everything and all of my accomplishments that I made in WCW. I was looking forward to leaving all of that behind and starting it all over new. I didn't expect to come to WWE and be the champion. When I was there, it was a short time, before I lost the WCW championship to The Rock.
Right.
And it was quite some time later before I got it back.
But you're on TV working with The Rock and working with Steve Austin right off the bat. These other guys are sitting home and people are forgetting they exist.
Well, out of sight is out of mind in this business. You know what I mean? Ric Flair always told me a wrestler's worst, enemy is time off.
Right.
Time away from that television screen. That's why you've seen Ric Flair for the last 40 years on that screen. Because out of sight is out of mind. That's something that I didn't want to lose my momentum. Being the WCW champion, being the United States champion, closing the company down. I felt like I had a chip in the game right there, and I had to use it, had to utilize it. And I came into WWE looking forward to just working my butt off, and trying to learn my craft more than anything. Because when I came from WCW, I wasn't the most entertaining guy in the world. I could wrestle. I could go out and perform. I could perform in the middle of the ring all day and make it look really, really good. But as far as behind the mic, making people laugh and entertaining people, I didn't have that ability until I came to WWE, and they let me expand, that part of my character. And once I picked it up, I just ran with it and said, man, this is going to be great. No matter whatever role I get, I'm going to take it and try to make it something special.
Right.
Absolutely, never look back. Can you maybe describe the difference in the culture? Because I know that's one thing that you hear a lot of guys when they went from WCW to WWF and now the WWE, that there was this Jericho describes in one of the DVDs, I forgot, where he just says it was like there was black and white and then it was color. Can you kind of describe that especially you were still there in those sort of dying days of WCW, and then you go to WWF when it's on a huge, it's at its biggest peak, and sort of describe that in that sense of what the culture was like going from WCW to WWF.
Well, I mean, even working in WCW, I always knew, WWE was a machine. You know what I mean? We always knew the production was, with WWE. Everybody always knew that. But for myself, I was comfortable actually in WCW. I literally had everything my own way. I knew it was going to change when going to WWE. WWE always worked at the coldest city in the world. That title means exactly what it says: World Wrestling Entertainment. They wrestle all over and entertain all over that map.
It's true. While you were with WCW for those 10 years, were there ever any overtures from the WWF? As far as was there interest in you before the company fell apart? At any point during your 10 years?
Not really. Before the company fell apart, for me, I knew when I first came into WCW, I knew I was the lowest guy on the totem pole. I knew guys that came in at the same time my idea was making more money than me. I knew it was going to be a little bit of a racial factor, being in WCW because we were in the South. But a guy by the name of Ox Baker, he told me when I first got in the business, in the Eastern Coliseum, he said, kid, you got a lot of talent. Said one day, you can make a lot of money in this business, man, if you just stay focused. But the thing is, you're going to come up against a lot of roadblocks, a lot of racism, out there. You're going to come up against it. So you just got to figure out how to, get around it, over it, under it. And, a lot of times you just got to go through it. So I always took that mentality, into the business. I remembered those words from Ox Baker so clearly. So when I got to WCW, it was always business for me. I never played games. I never ripped guys. Everybody always knew how serious I was. I didn't take racial jokes very, very, kindly. I was always willing to fight, physically fight, And I was always, my motto has always been, if I'm 100% right about something, speak up about it 100% of the time. If I'm 99%, keep my mouth shut. So I just always use that factor right there. Whether I got fired or not for being right, I was willing to get fired for being right, and I've always been that way.
Describe to the listeners now. You're the Smackdown General Manager now.
Yep.
Congratulations. What is a typical week in your life like as in that role as SmackDown General Manager? Because you don't go on the road, correct?
I just do TV, pay-per-view, and every now and then I'll go out and, ambassador the show and whatnot. But, my role now, I'm loving my role. I tell guys, when you become general, you don't lose your stripes. I've been through the trenches,
Right.
I've been through the wars, you know what I mean? I served my time, and it was great. I don't look back on it. I don't have an itch, to want to get back out there in the ring and, go around and, travel and do that anymore. I mean, I'm really over that, you know what I mean? Being in the position I'm in right now, just when Vince McMahon came out and appointed me SmackDown General Manager, and the words that he said about me, it meant a lot. And that really meant a lot because Vince don't put too many guys over.
Right.
That's what I'm television, but for him to come out and say the kind words he said about me, it let me know a whole lot about him. He was the first person that I gave my book to, just because I respect him so much, and I wanted him to be the first one to see exactly the struggles that I had been through. But being the SmackDown General Manager, being appointed that role, it's great. My week is really, really good. I'm at home with my kids, throughout the week, and I really, I'm loving and enjoying my life now. Enjoying the fruits of all the labor that I put in. A lot of guys really never get a chance to enjoy this part of it. They see the road, and then they're broke down after they get out of it. A lot of times they spend all of their money from partying, and we're going through 2 or 3 divorces and whatnot. I'm in the best stage of my life. I got twin babies, just turned 2 years old, boy and a girl. My lovely wife. We've been together, we just had our anniversary not too long ago. I tell you, I couldn't ask for a better life. I wouldn't change a thing in my life other than my mother passing when I was, when I was almost a 14-year-old boy. That's the only thing that I would ever change if I could in my life.
So you're loving where you're at.
Yeah, man. I'm on top of the world, man.
So you have this? It seems like you have a great relationship with Vince McMahon. Is he gonna let you plug this book on TV or what?
I got my book up in my office on the show, and I'm getting a big poster where I'm going to be putting up a big poster of my book up, in my office. And
There you
that's
go.
one thing about the company. The company has been totally behind me and all my, with all the stuff that I do. I got my wrestling school. I have my own wrestling promotion. Don't too many of the guys have that. Everything I do is for the business. It's to further the business. It's to further the youth of the business. It's to, teach these young guys exactly what they need to do. I got to keep this business going for many, many years because this is my trade. This is what I do. This is what, I've been afforded to do for, over 20 years and make money and feed my families. You know what I mean? And now it's just time for me to, like I say, give back to the game, keep it going forward. And knowing my position, knowing my role, and letting these young guys, go out there and do their thing, opposed to me trying to step out there and still be in their way, holding a spot up for somebody. It's not about me anymore. It's about, the Dolph Ziggler's, the Cody Rhodes, the Ortons. It's about those guys.
Yeah, we have obviously mentioning those guys. We have SummerSlam on the way this Sunday. Can you kind of tell us what we can expect from the SmackDown side, and then maybe the overall the entire card itself, but mainly your side, the SmackDown side, the side you're controlling.
Well, the spoiler went out earlier, as far as the Del Rio and Sheamus match. That's the biggest match on the card right there for me. Knowing what's going to happen, with that the SmackDown, World Heavyweight Championship. That right there, Alberto Del Rio he's a tough customer, and if he was to pull it out, it would be great. Also, he's one of my favorite guys that go out there and perform these days. He's a real man. You know what I mean? When you watch Alberto Del Rio, he's got machismo. He's got that handsome quality. As well as he can go out in the ring and get it done. So Sheamus is going to have his work cut out for him. Sheamus, of course, has been, bruised, battered, and torn over these past few months. I mean, the guy's been working, tirelessly day in and day out on the road. I mean, promotional tours, he comes in, from the weekend, events, and he's beat up. He's got a black eye, but he's still willing to go out there and get the job done. And that right there is what this business has been built on. And I love it. I love it so much to watch these young guys go out there and, create their own legacy. It's a great thing to watch. I don't want to be out there doing it with them anymore, but to watch it, it's a beautiful thing.
Give us a percentage. You say you don't want to wrestle anymore. What are the odds that we will ever see Booker T and Stevie Ray one more match together in the ring? Is it at 0%?
No, I wouldn't say that's a 0%. That's something. My brother and I, we got a very strange relationship. You know what I mean? My brother and I, we hadn't been as close as we should have been, because we was together for so long, But, I don't know. Maybe that goes back to our childhood, the way things were. You can read it in the book, as far as, me and my brother. We had a good relationship, but, I mean, he kicked my butt when I was a young kid. And the thing is, I've grown up now. He can't beat me up anymore like that. I'm a man now, and I think that was, when we kind of like had our little falling out because I felt like I was a man, But definitely, as far as the percentage go, I'd say 50%.
Oh, wow. So even that high, huh?
I always say never say never. You know what I mean? I don't like to use that word, until I'm gone. Never say never. As far as seeing me back in the ring, I say I don't want to get back in the ring, but seeing me back in the ring, it's probably 100% chance you'll probably see me back in the ring doing something. With my with my boots on. That's the thing. I'm subconscious. I'm in still good shape, but I don't like taking my shirt off these days around these young kids, man, because they're looking real good. And I got to work overtime.
Booker T from Prison to Promise, Life Before the Squared Circle. That's the book. The date is September 1st, correct?
September 1st. You can go on iBooks right now and get your pre-order in. Right now, we're looking for this thing to be a bestseller, man. I'm looking for, to make a movie out of this thing. And like I say, save the kids' life. Get it in all the prisons around the country, around the world. Get it in all the schools around the, rural areas and, the trouble areas, you know what I mean? We want to make this thing something special and, donate some money and, help a lot more kids, and that's really what it's all about. I'm just so blessed to be in this position.
Sounds great. You're always a businessman. I noticed you left it off. The book cuts off right at your WCW tryout. Does this mean you're going down that Chris Jericho, Mick? I hear you laughing. We got more books coming, don't we?
Oh, definitely. The thing is, I got to do the wrestling book, I mean, 35 championships, I was already thinking about the title, 35, and that's it, just 35. And the struggles of coming through the wrestling business. I got to write that story. I mean, to start what my brother and I did, in Texas All-Pro Wrestling, to move to the Global Wrestling Federation, the WCW, the WWF, the WWE, the TNA, back to WWE, to being, the king of the world, and now to being the general manager of SmackDown. I don't know what's next. I really don't. I don't know if it's the end of the line or what, but I tell you, it's been great. Definitely, I got to get the wrestling book out there. I don't know when. It's not in the works or anything like that. I'm going to have to actually YouTube a lot of my memories on that right there because I've never wrestled for the memories, to remember myself. I always perform for the memories for the fans who watched it. And so I'm going to have to go back to research a lot of it. And there's so much. There's so many different things, so many different parts of my wrestling career. It may be two books. Never done.
Yeah, and it'll be a great read. And this one's a great read as well. So I hope everybody does get it. And I hope it does kind of get to that bestsellers list like you mentioned because I think it's a great story and it's really well done.
I appreciate it. And the thing is, like I wanted to do, like I said, it's not the wrestling book, it's for the wrestling fan to read, but it's for anybody to read, more than anything.
Right.
The book about a struggle, and like I say, a struggle of a kid walking towards that light at the end of the tunnel and not getting caught up in the middle and just keep on walking and keep on walking and came out where that light was. And, man, it was real bright, man, from that point on. Since I was 25 years old, I tell people I stopped working when I was 25. It's been a damn good life. I'm 47 years old right now, and I'm still going strong. I appreciate all the fans for, all their support over the years, and I always, it sounds cliche, but I honestly, truly know without my fans' support and putting me in a great position, there's no way that I would be here right now without that, the man upstairs. I appreciate you guys.
For sure, and we thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. We hope the book does great. But I'm going to put you on the spot right now before you go. I got to ask you, can you give us a Can You Dig It sucker before you leave?
Yeah, most definitely, man. It's Booker T, SmackDown GM, just finishing up this big interview from Prison of Promise out there, guys. Go and pick it up, and once you read it, I know you can dig that. Sucker!
Perfect. That's awesome.
Outstanding. Thanks, man.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Yeah. Appreciate it, guys.
Take care.